was great enthusiasm. Wow.
Good morning, Center of Spiritual Living Delaware.
Good
Once again,
morning, Marcy.
Unity co founder Charles Fillmore wrote the classic book Prosperity, which is about developing a prosperity consciousness. It was published in 1936 when the Great Depression was in full swing, when the entire country was deeply steeped in lack consciousness. Here is a passage from page 124. The way is now open for you to pay your debts. Surrender them to God along with all doubts and fears. God's power, love, and wisdom are here, for God's kingdom is within you. Give God full dominion in your life and affairs. Give God your business, your family affairs, your finances, and let God pay your debts, which is happening even now. For it's God's righteous desire to free you from every burden. Meet every insidious thought such as, I can't, I don't know how, I can't see the way, with the declaration, universal intelligence is my shepherd, I shall not want. Universal intelligence is my shepherd, I shall not want. The funds to pay all your bills may not suddenly appear in a lump sum, but as you watch and work and pray, holding yourself in the consciousness of God's leadership and abundance, you will notice your funds beginning to grow, here a little, there a little, and increasing more and more, rapidly as your faith increases and your anxious thoughts are stilled. For with the increase will come added good judgment and wisdom in the management of your affairs. Debt is soon vanquished when wisdom and good judgment are in control. I'm going to read that again. Debt is soon vanquished when wisdom and good judgment are in control. Let us use our creative power and faith as we speak out loud this affirmation on the screen. I
I dissolve
dissolve
in
in
my
my
mind
mind
and
and in
in all
all
minds
minds
any
any
idea
idea
that
that
my
my
good
good
can
can be
be.
withheld from me. The opulent source of all has poured all resources out to and through me. I welcome it. I am a mighty channel of divine abundance. And so it is.
So before I share with you the way out of debt by surrendering it to the divine, I'd like to talk with you about the 4 phases of spiritual knowledge. Because as I went through these 4 stages, I realized that many of us can kind of get caught a little bit. So let me just go through them with you. The first phase is the inspired phase. This is when we hear a spiritual truth or maybe a deepening understanding of a spiritual truth. And it hits us and we feel inspired. It can even be mind blowing and exciting and, oh my gosh, a real paradigm shift and very exciting. And then, we can feel, oh wow, I'm going to go home and I'm going to start practicing this right away. I'm going to put this into my life. And then life goes on and it slips from our minds. And we might even say, well, you know what? I'm going to go back and review that by clicking on the link and hearing Reverend Kathleen's message again. But, life goes on and it may or may not happen. So the next phase is the familiarity phase. And in that phase, what happens is we hear a spiritual principle or a spiritual truth. We go, oh, yeah, that's right. And it's perfect for what's going on in our lives right now. We have, whatever the challenge might be that we're going through, we're thinking, wow, okay, this time I'm going to apply it, and it's going to make a difference in my life. But then again, maybe the practice goes on for a while and then sort of slips from our minds and we get on with our lives and it doesn't happen. So then as we continue to hear these principles over and over again, what can happen is the bored phase. And in the bored phase, what can happen is we hear the spiritual truth and we and we say to ourselves, I've heard this before. I've already heard it. I already know this, you know. And what's really true though, if you're honest with yourselves, is that you haven't really integrated it. You haven't put it in practice for the length of time so that it really goes deep and it becomes just a natural way of being. Because when it is a natural way of being, then you move to the next phase, which is spiritual knowledge, the spiritual knowledge phase. And in this particular phase, you've practiced it, you've integrated it. So when you hear the spiritual truth again, you have this smile on your face and this knowing and this warm feeling that, yeah, there it is again. And it's just a reminder to me that I'm on the right path. So do you see the difference? So when you feel that you feel that sense of boredom, oh, I've already heard this before, that is a signal. That is a signal that you haven't fully integrated it. Because when you fully integrate it, hearing the truth will make your heart sing. It's as simple as that. So it just means time to practice, time to really commit to integrating that into your life. And so my prayer today is that we all more fully, and I'm including myself in that, more fully integrate these spiritual truths into our lives because it does make a difference. So let's move on to our topic now, which is how do we let God pay our debts? And so again, this may sound familiar, but listen to this. Charles Fillmore says, fill your mind with the thoughts of divine love, of justice, peace, and forgiveness. This will pay your debts of love, which are the only debts that you really owe. I'm going to read that again. Fill your mind with thoughts of divine love, justice, peace, and forgiveness. This will pay your debts of love, which are the only debts that you really owe. Then see how quickly and easily and naturally all your outer debts will be paid, as all the inharmonies in mind, body, and affairs smooth out at the same time. Nothing will so quickly enrich your mind and free it from every thought of lack as the realization of divine love. Divine love will quickly and perfectly free you from the burden of debt. So let's breathe that in. So here's the principle. As we pay our debts of love, and I'm going to be going into that a little bit more, as we pay our debts of love by filling our minds with thoughts of divine love, justice, peace, and forgiveness, our outer debts are paid. And again, to the human eyes and the human mind, this all sounds like poppycock. I guess that's the only word I can think of. It sounds like, yeah, right. I start loving and then all my debts go away. I mean, I hear you. However, one of the things that I remember very clearly is when Michael Beckwith was on Oprah one Sunday, or one weekday. This was quite some time ago. And there was a young woman who was saying, you know, I'm really in a lot of debt. I've gotten divorced from my husband, and he's not contributing very much, and I just keep going more and more and more into debt. And do you know what Michael Beckwith said? He said, have you done your forgiveness work? Have you done your forgiveness work? This is what we're talking about, is we are energetic beings. When we hold any grudges, judgments, resentments, anger, anywhere in our physical being, and we might not even necessarily be totally aware of it, conscious of it, but it's going on a deeper level. whenever that happens, we literally block the channels. The channels are blocked to the flow of divine abundance. Divine abundance is our natural state, but we can literally block it through lack of forgiveness. So yes, you might say, but I do practice forgiveness occasionally. And I fill out those radical forgiveness worksheets. I do practice gratitude. I do practice meditation, prayer, journaling, whatever it might be. Doesn't that pay my debts of love? And so why are things still not working completely in my life, like debt? So here's the deal. It's to take it one step further, and that is to pay attention to our day-to-day conversations. Pay attention to our day-to-day conversations. And I'm not only talking about our conversations with other people, I'm talking about our conversations that go on in our mind. Some people call it the inner dialogue or self-talk. Like, what are the thoughts that are going on in my mind? And the thing to remember is that thoughts are like broadcasts across the universe. We have thoughts, they are energetic. They literally broadcast across the universe, and they make an impression on universal mind and all the energy that's all around us, for those of you who are more scientific. It makes an impression. It's energetic. It makes an impression, and it's creative power itself that we hold within us and that we use all the time, either consciously or unconsciously. And spoken words are exponentially more powerful than thoughts and create much more quickly. So with that in mind, think about what happens if we hear ourselves complaining, criticizing, or gossiping, either out loud to other people or in our own minds. We can be making judgments about somebody or criticizing whatever, or going over in our own minds something that happened in the past that we didn't like, and even having an argument with the person that we were upset with. Anybody have that kind of experience? So these are the debts of love that we are to pay. These are the debts of love. And the debts are every time that we criticize, gossip, complain, we are building up debts of love. So we undo them through practicing loving kindness, through practicing forgiveness, through when we hear ourselves thinking that in our minds or speaking it with our mouths, that we catch ourselves and turn it around. I was actually witnessing someone recently who was doing that. She started to say something that she knew could have come across as maybe critical, and I could see her shifting in the conversation to a more understanding, loving place. So it's really powerful. So the thing is even in the midst of when you're saying it, you can shift it around and say, well, wait a minute here. Let me just look at this from a different perspective. Let me use a little bit more compassion here when I'm thinking about this person. Because like attracts like. Here's what happens when we criticize another person, whether it's in our minds or with our mouths. Our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the person that we're criticizing and ourselves. So we're reinforcing that pattern that we're criticizing in ourselves. And I don't know how many of you have noticed that sometimes when people complain about others, that often it's a characteristic that we see in them. And of course, if we see it in them, then we also have it in ourselves. So it kind of works on multiple levels. So the thing to remember is that these are all thought forms in collective consciousness that we can either tap into or we can start dismantling by speaking a higher truth. So let's breathe. Because the last thing I want to do is have you all go home and feel guilty or feel bad because you've been criticizing or thinking negative things. That's not the point. The point is to become an observer of it. To remember who we are. We're whole, perfect, and complete divine presence. To be an observer of it, and then when we catch it, to shift it. It's that simple. That's how we pay our debts of love. So here's a beautiful practice that is very helpful that you can do, just once a day even, to kind of catch some of these patterns, is list 3 people that annoy you and what annoys you about them. Okay? As many as you want, but start with 3. And 3 things that annoy you. And then here's the thing. As soon as you find out what it is that annoys you, change it over to an I statement. Because remember, if you're seeing it in them, it means that you are in some way practicing it yourself. So, okay, so here's one that I caught myself doing. Oh, she's so immature. So I turn it around to, I am wise and I see the good in all people. I am wise and I see the good in all people. Or, he's impatient. I'm not going to say who that is. That was another thought that I had. So remember, if I'm thinking this, it's really reflecting in me. I mean, I'm the first to admit this. So then I tell myself, I am patient with others, and I have compassion for others. So it's learning to have compassion for myself and compassion for others, and start affirming a higher truth. She never shows appreciation. That's another one. I love showing my appreciation for others. I love showing my appreciation for others. So those are some examples of how you can shift it around. And remember, when we're talking about other people, we're talking about ourselves, because there's only one universal mind. That's sometimes a little challenging to face. And it's not about blame. You notice I shared what's going on with me, and yet I realize that it's mine to change in my own inner world. That's how I pay my debts of love, with higher truth. And the thing that happens is when we shift within, everything around us begins to shift. Everything around us begins to shift. And I've experienced this so many times over so many years that I can say it with a deep spiritual knowledge. I can say that knowing that it's absolutely true. As I change my inner world, my external world absolutely has to change. And see, that makes my heart sing. I'm not bored by hearing that. And so I decided to cultivate, or to get myself a mantra that I could begin to start saying to myself, which is, I love to think and speak about the good in others. I love to think and speak about the good in others. Or I love appreciating others. It could be simple, but beginning to make that a mantra. And so as we fill our minds then with thoughts of divine love, justice, peace, and forgiveness, we are doing something called heart-brain coherence. We're bringing the head and the heart into a coherent state, into alignment with higher truth. And many of you are familiar, because I've brought it up before, with the heart math meditation, which is very quick, very short, and very powerful. The research shows that by doing this little 3-minute thing every time we feel stressed, or we notice that our minds are not cooperating with us the way we would like them to, and our emotions are maybe all over the place, if we practice this, we can bring ourselves back into alignment. We can pay our debts of love at the same time. And when we do this, what the research shows is that there are 40,000 brain cells located in what they now call the heart brain. 40,000 cells, brain cells in the heart brain. And so when we line that up with this meditation, it opens us to things like divine wisdom, to physical healing, to our intuition. Anybody for that? All right, so let's practice it. Let's take a moment. Take a deep breath. And this is so simple. So what we do is we put our attention on our hearts. And if you want to, you can put your hand on your heart. And I'm not talking about your physical heart. I'm talking about the heart energy center, which is right in the center of the chest. So when you put your hands there, begin to breathe in and out very slowly to the count of 5. 5 counts in and 5 counts out. We're really slowing it down and deepening it. And giving our body the message that we are safe. You can even say as you breathe, I am safe. And then after about a minute of that, the final 2 minutes can be simply feeling appreciation or compassion for someone. So think of someone, maybe someone who annoys you, and just begin to feel appreciation. Look for the good in them. Have compassion for any of their foibles, because we all have them. And just practice appreciation, practice loving that person. And when you're ready, just simply bring yourself back to the present moment. Eyes open when you're ready. So again, debt is created from a place of inner dissonance, when we're out of alignment with the energy of love, which means we're out of alignment with the present moment in which our entire spiritual power is available. The entire presence of God is available to us. So as we focus on the past, we're in lack of forgiveness, withholding love. When we're focused on the future, we can fall into I can't, I don't know how, I can't see the way. But when we're in the present moment, we are in love. We are in love with life and with everybody around us. So a really powerful practice, in addition to this breathing thing that you can do at any point in time, is what's called casting the burden. And I remember the first time I read this, it was Florence Scovel Shinn. Anybody read her book on the game of life? Yes. Casting the burden. I love this. And she casts the burden on the Christ within. You can, if Christ doesn't work for you, you can cast the burden on the divine within. So anytime there is a dissonant thought or feeling that's going on within you, I cast this burden on the divine within, or the Christ within, and I go free. So again, you're bringing yourself into a state of coherence, which is the opposite of dissonance. Coherence, and that's when we're in coherence, when we're in that state of coherence, we are in the now, in peace. It's called by the scientific community the relaxation response, right? Or heart-brain coherence. This is a state in which the creative law, all of those dreams and desires and goals that you've put before you, that you've written down, now they have a chance to flow through you and into expression. Now they have a chance. So I want to share with you a beautiful example, and this comes from Reverend Michelle Whittington, who's out in Arizona. And she is someone who was my mentor for many years and is still a friend. And this 5 years ago, I was actually meeting with her once a week, so I was able to hear the whole story of what was unfolding. So this is a powerful example how debt was vanquished when these spiritual principles of paying the debt of love were practiced. So 5 years ago, 2012, actually it was December 2012, Reverend Michelle's husband, Lonnie, was rushed to the hospital for open heart surgery and ended up having open heart surgery. And 8 hours of open heart surgery. I mean, it was really quite a long thing. And so after that, there were then 2 weeks of recovery in the hospital. So you can imagine the hospital bills starting to mount up. And so a couple weeks, they finally got him home, and he had some other issues, and he had to come back into the hospital for a procedure. And when they arrived, the person at the desk took a look at their account, turned the computer screen around to show them, oh my gosh, that you have $490,000 that you owe the hospital. And she said it was enough to put both of them into a heart attack and into the hospital. It was so extravagant. And so immediately the thoughts are, and then the woman said, oh, wait a second, there is some insurance that will cover it. So instead of $490,000, you owe $170,000. Well, in the meantime, they had been receiving bills from doctors and all those other incidental bills that mounted up to $30,000. And so together they had $200,000 in medical bills. And both of them, I guess, went into this state of, oh my gosh, we can't do this. There's no way that I can find a way to actually pay this $200,000. We're going to be in debt the rest of our lives. Their minds are going crazy. And then they caught themselves. And Reverend Michelle said, that's right. I need to surrender this. I need to cast this burden on the divine within and free myself of this burden, because as long as I carry around this burden, Spirit will not have any way of resolving this issue. So she did, and she began to work with her practitioner. And, as she was oscillating between lack and abundance, all these different ideas, her practitioner said to her, so what is it now? Do you believe in lack or do you believe in abundance? Because you can't believe in both at the same time. Because anytime we believe in lack, even if we think it's just partially, we're believing in lack. We're believing in lack. So she committed herself to continue to cast the burden and to think thoughts of abundance. And she did this very consistently. And I don't know what happened with Lonnie, but she was doing her own personal work. So then it came time where the bill actually arrived at their house from the hospital. And after this work, she got a bill that was for only $43,000. So again, it wasn't 100. It wasn't 490. It wasn't 170. It was 43,000. So she realized that it was not itemized. asked a friend of hers who was an insurance broker to please call the hospital and get an itemized bill and check it out for accuracy. So when her friend called the hospital rep, this is basically the way the conversation went. We are showing that the Whittingtons owe $26,000. Oh, hold on a minute, let me check. And so there was a delay in time as the hospital rep was checking the records. We just received a check from the insurance company for $26,000. Tell the Whittingtons that they owe nothing. So you could say that's coincidence, or that's just the way things work. But you wouldn't convince Reverend Michelle of that. As far as she's concerned, by her lining herself up vibrationally through paying her debts of love, casting the burden, staying aligned with higher truth, she allowed all of that to unfold very smoothly, easily, and effortlessly. And so if the divine in her, through her, and as her can pay her debts, that means the divine can pay your debts too. And if you don't have financial debts, you can apply this to any other area of your life where you would like transformation and change. So powerful. So simple in some ways, a simple concept, but the practice of it day to day and moment to moment, that's the key. It's staying in the observer role of the mind. So I'd like to conclude with this rewrite of the 23rd Psalm that I adapted from Fillmore's rewrite, which he calls a prosperity treatment. So we'll use this as our closing treatment. So if you close your eyes, please, and turn within. And this is how it goes. The Spirit is my banker. I shall not want. It makes me to lie down in the consciousness of abundance. It leads me into a state of inner peace. It restores my faith in infinite supply. It guides me in the paths of prosperity, for this is its nature. Yea, though I walk in the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy guidance and protection comfort me. Thou prepares a way for me in the presence of my debtors. Thou fills my mind with wisdom and new ideas. My bounty overflows. Surely goodness and plenty will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the consciousness of abundance forever. And so it is.